Give a cat a pinch of dried catnip, and you know exactly what happens next. The frantic pawing, the sudden drooling, the relentless rolling on the floor. For decades, we've treated this reaction as an amusing quirk of pet ownership, a harmless recreational buzz for our living room companions. But looking at this population breakdown chart of domestic cats reveals a strictly genetic divide. Up to 40% of cats possess total immunity to catnip, and because the necessary receptors haven't fully developed, kittens under 3 months old show zero reaction either. That immunity isn't a permanent shield against all mint plants, though. As the chart updates to include silvervine, a related plant with a similar chemical makeup, you can see it triggers a response in roughly 80% of the cats who previously ignored catnip. This specific sensitivity is written deep into feline DNA, and it extends far beyond the animals sleeping at the foot of our beds. Big cats carry the exact same genetic sequence. Present silvervine to a multi-hundred-pound apex predator like a tiger, and it will drop to the dirt to exhibit the exact same frantic rubbing and rolling. That shared reaction points to a clear biological truth. This behavior predates domestication by millions of years. It is an ancient evolutionary trait hardwired across the Felidae family. To understand why a tiger would roll in the dirt, we have to look closely at what the animal is actually doing. Normal feline play is predatory. It involves stalking, batting, and pouncing. A catnip reaction looks nothing like that. The movements are rigid, erratic, and highly repetitive. When researchers isolated the specific physical actions, the prolonged face rubbing, the stretching, the intense biting, they found the structural pattern of the behavior was entirely distinct from how cats voluntarily play with ordinary toys. It is a stereotypic reflex. A chemical compound enters the cat's system and triggers an involuntary sequence of motions that temporarily overrides their normal behavioral control. The cat isn't deciding to have a good time. An external trigger has hijacked its neurological system, forcing the animal to execute a specific set of physical commands. Animals do not surrender control of their bodies by accident. If a plant can force a formidable predator to wriggle on its back, that behavior must serve a biological function critical enough to be permanently encoded into its genetics. The trigger for this reflex comes down to two specific molecules, nepetalactone, produced by catnip, and nepetalactol, found in silvervine. Both are created when the plants run a unique two-step enzymatic process. When a cat sniffs the plant, those volatile molecules enter the nasal cavity. Interestingly, they completely bypass the vomeronasal organ, the specialized scent gland cats use to detect mating pheromones. Instead, the molecules bind directly to G-protein-coupled olfactory receptors lining the surface of the sensory neurons inside the nose. This animated neurological map tracks what happens next. The chemical signal travels from the olfactory bulb straight into the amygdala and the hypothalamus, the core regions of the brain responsible for regulating emotion and behavior. Tracing this specific pathway confirms the chemical operates as a direct physical trigger. Once these molecules bind to those receptors, they bypass conscious scent processing to strike the cat's internal control centers directly. Fascinated. That activation strikes the Mu-Opioid system. Within moments of exposure, the cat's bloodstream is flooded with Beta-Endorphins, the exact hormones that block pain and induce intense feelings of euphoria. To prove this endorphin flood was the true engine driving the erratic behavior, scientists ran a specific pharmacological test using a drug called naloxone. This data chart isolates the results of that trial. You can see the control group exhibiting intense, prolonged rubbing and rolling behaviors. But when the second group was given naloxone, a drug that physically blocks opioid receptors, their physical response completely flatlined. The high is real, but it operates as a biological mechanism designed to intensely reward the animal. Evolution is flooding the cat's brain with pleasure to guarantee it performs a specific physical action. We just need to know what that action accomplishes. In chemical terms, nepetalactone is classified as an iridoid. Out in the wild, plants produce iridoid compounds for one primary reason: to repel insects. A team of Japanese researchers hypothesized that cats were actively exploiting this botanical defense mechanism. To test it, they placed cats treated with the active chemical, alongside untreated cats, into a room filled with live mosquitoes. Here is the bar chart showing the results of that exposure. The untreated cats were swarmed, registering a high volume of mosquito landings. In stark contrast, the number of bites plummeted on the cats treated with the chemical extract. Realization: the erratic rolling, the cheek rubbing, the full body stretching, it is a mechanical application process. The cat is physically coating its fur in a potent, naturally occurring bug spray. For an apex predator like a leopard stalking prey through dense, humid forests, biting insects aren't just an annoyance. They are vectors for debilitating, often lethal parasites. The entire catnip response suddenly snaps into focus. The euphoric rolling is not the side effect of a recreational high. It is the primary evolutionary goal, an involuntary, life-saving anointing process driven by a hardwired chemical reward. That leaves just one final mystery. If rubbing against the plant transfers the insect repellent, why do cats so frequently bite, tear, and chew the leaves while they're intoxicated? It turns out physical damage acts as a chemical catalyst. When the feline's teeth tear the plant tissue, it forces the leaf to release a vastly higher concentration of volatile repellent into the air. We see this kind of resourcefulness across the animal kingdom. Apes swallow abrasive leaves to clear gut parasites, and monarch butterflies use toxic milkweed to kill off infections. Cats simply found a plant that protects them from the outside in. When a house cat shreds a toy filled with dried mint, it is executing an ancient defensive routine. We are seeing the same biological mechanism that protected the world's apex predators from the parasitic threats of the wild.